You hear the word burnout everywhere, right? We use it when we're tired, when we're overwhelmed, or when we're just completely fed up. But here's the thing, it gets really confused with everyday stress or even something much more serious like depression. So today, we are going to untangle these terms because knowing what you're actually dealing with is the absolute first step to feeling better.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've said it, and you've definitely heard it from friends, family, coworkers. I am so burnt out. It's become this go-to phrase for feeling overwhelmed and just plain overwork. And look, it's a real feeling, but what we're calling burnout might not always be the full story.
And that's the big question we're going to tackle, right? Are you dealing with the normal pressures of stress? Are you in a state of genuine burnout? Or could it be something more, like depression? Getting this right isn't just about using the right word. It's about finding the right fix.
All right, first things first. We have got to get our definition straight. Honestly, understanding the fundamental difference between these three is the most critical step of all.
Okay, so first up, stress. We always think of stress as this big, bad monster, but here's the thing. It's not always. A little bit of short-term pressure, that's actually a good thing. It's what pushes us to get stuff done. Think about a parent bugging their kid to study for a big exam. It's sharp, it's temporary, and it helps you perform.
Okay, but what happens when that stress just never ends? Well, that's when you start wandering into burnout territory. See, burnout isn't just having a bad week. It's what happens after months of nonstop chronic stress that just totally overwhelms your ability to cope. It's this deep state of exhaustion. And here's a really key point. As bad as it feels, it's not technically classified as a mental illness.
And that's where we have to talk about depression. Because this is a whole different ballgame. Depression is a clinical mental illness. We're talking about a major depressive disorder that really gets in the way of your ability to just live your life. We're talking a real loss of function, where even getting out of bed can feel like climbing a mountain. This is not something you can just power through. It absolutely requires professional help.
So, putting them all side by side like this really makes the differences pop, doesn't it? Let's zoom in on that function row for a second. When you're stressed, yeah, you can still get things done. When you're burnt out, you're getting by, but probably just barely, doing the absolute minimum. But with depression, that's where you see a significant loss of function. And this right here is exactly why throwing these words around like they mean the same thing can be so unhelpful.
Okay, so how do you know if you're heading towards burnout? Well, your mind and your body are actually trying to tell you. They're sending up flares long before you hit that breaking point. We just need to learn how to read the signals.
So on the emotional side, burnout it's just a whole new level of tired. We are not talking about I need a good night's sleep tired. This is a deep, chronic exhaustion that sleep doesn't even touch. And with it comes this really ugly cynicism, You feel totally detached from everything. It's this feeling of helplessness, like nothing you do makes a difference. And any spark of joy you had for your job has just been snuffed out. And of course, when you feel that way, it's going to change how you act. You might find yourself procrastinating like crazy on stuff you used to breeze through. You start pulling away from your team, just wanting to be left alone. You show up, you clock in, but you've checked out. You're just doing the bare minimum to not get fired.
And you can't forget the physical side of this. Your body really does keep the score. All that chronic stress has to go somewhere, right? So if you're suddenly catching every single cold that makes the rounds, or you've got these weird aches and pains that doctors can't explain, that could be your body waving a giant red flag, telling you that you are running on empty.
There's a line that just perfectly captures the essence of burnout. It's this. The most distinct feature isn't that you dislike your boss or you're mad about your pay, it's that you come to dislike the entire concept of work itself.
Wow.
When it gets to that point, that's not just a bad job, that's burnout.
So, if any of this is sounding familiar, it's so easy to think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I handle this? But what if the problem isn't you? What if it's your environment? Let's dig into the single biggest and most overlooked cause of burnout.
You see this all the time, right? Companies offer stress management workshops. And look, for day-to-day stress, they're great. They give you some tools for your toolbox. But for burnout, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. It completely misses the point. Why? Because burnout isn't about your personal ability to cope. It's a problem with the source of the chronic stress in the first place.
Think about this story. I bet you've seen it play out. You've got this superstar employee, right?
Just amazing, always delivers. Then, out of nowhere, their performance just tanks, and it stays that way for weeks. You think, oh man, they've lost their mojo. But then, they switch to a new team, or get a job at a different company, and bam! They're a superstar again, almost instantly. So, what changed? It wasn't the person, was it? It was the place.
And that really brings us to the heart of the matter. Most of the time, burnout is not a personal failure. It is an organizational failure. It grows in toxic cultures with unsupportive bosses and with impossible expectations. It's a problem with the system, not the individual.
Okay, so we've figured out what these things are, and we've pinpointed a really surprising cause. Now for the most important part. What in the world do you do about it? Let's talk about the path forward.
Look, you can't find the right solution if you don't have the right diagnosis. It's that simple. If it's burnout, the only real fix is to tackle the root cause. That means some serious self-care, sure, but it also means setting hard boundaries and maybe, just maybe, changing your work environment. But if it's clinical depression, self-care is not going to cut it. That requires professional help from a doctor or a therapist. That distinction could not be more important.
All right, so let's wrap up with a few questions I want you to ask yourself. And be really honest here. First one, are you exhausted? And I mean physically and emotionally, on a chronic, day-in, day-out basis. Is it a kind of bone-deep tired that sleep just doesn't seem to help?
Okay, number 2, check your attitude. How do you feel about your job? Are you feeling more and more cynical, more detached? Have you kind of lost that connection to the purpose of the work or even the people you work with? And last one, take a look at what you're actually doing. Have you started pulling back from your colleagues? Are you avoiding tasks or projects you actually used to like? If you found yourself nodding along and saying yes to these, that's a huge sign that you need to stop and really pay attention to what's going on. So, what's the takeaway here? The next time a friend or a coworker says, "Ugh, I'm so burned out," maybe resist the urge to jump in with a quick fix. The most powerful thing you can do? Just listen. Be empathetic. Because getting the difference between these things right isn't just a mental exercise. It's how we start to actually give people the support they really need.